Hi, my name is Benedict. This video is about a new instrument that I'm popping up. I'm hoping that this little fella will end up being given away for free on vstforfree.com. I haven't approached him yet. I'll approach him with the material and this video, and hopefully he, I assume it's a he, is interested in taking it as an exclusive there. So scoot over, have a look, see if it's there. The synth is called Anadyomene. Strange word, but if you're into the art painting world at all, you'll know Venus Anadyomene, which basically just means rising from the sea, hence the bluey-greeny colour scheme. Don't worry about it. Weird name. No matter. What I've built is a simple combination of a subtractive synth and an FM synth. I'm seeing it primarily focused as an FM synth with some of the characteristics of a subtractive synth. You might sort of wonder, well, but isn't FM a bit done? No, not really. FM will never be done. It's a different way of approaching things. Sadly, when you look at a lot of what's out there, especially in the free domain, you find things that are really kind of overly complex. Now, Dext sounds great. It has the advantage of being able to load real DX7 patches. The problem is that it is a nightmare to program. It really is, and it makes it a lot harder than it needs to. There's some expensive FM synths out there, and each in their own way is good. But there's always a little bit of a market for something that gives you that FM sound and yet is simple and approachable without these weird boxes and trying to tie things together. So deliberately, it's a cut down concept of the DX style synth, very much packaged up as though it was, which it actually is, a 2-oscillator subtractive synth. So let's have a quick sense of how it might sound. We'll run through the presets. Actually, I'll pop some effects on those just to make it sound a little bit nicer, more like it's in a mix. The very famous FM acoustic piano type sound. The FM Rhodes sound, which was over so many records in the 80s and 90s, and deservedly so, beautiful sound. One of those electric pianos that sounds nothing like a piano, but will sit inside a mix really well because it's just so smooth. Bells, of course, simple pad. Again, something that's going to sit inside a mix and behave really nicely. Really deep, heavy pad. You just have to do it. So great for doing these kind of drony, noisy background sounds. As you'll see, very capable in the sort of Hammond rock organ B3 type arena. Perfect for your chip tuners. Just a straight bass sound, but very playable up there, almost a honky-tonk piano type thing. and a nice pulse width modulation type thing. So there are 16 sounds there. They're just very broad. I work on the assumption that you're going to make your own sounds. You know, that's really where it's at. So basic sound. While this will operate, sorry for the pun, as a standard subtractive synth, the primary aim is that it would not necessarily be used that way. By all means, go for it, knock yourself out, have fun with it that way. It's got a little bit of a character of its own in a funny digitally sort of a way. You might find that it's got some really nice uses. I've mostly been working on it as an FM synth. So true FM synthesis is additive by using maths, by multiplying the frequency of one oscillator by another. Now, it's actually not the frequency, it's the phase. Because if you multiply the frequency, it just sounds bloody awful. So FM is actually misnamed as actually PM. Phase modulation is very similar to what Casio did with the CZs, but has a slightly different sound. So we can take the output of, in this case, oscillator 2, and FM it to oscillator 1. And we get that classic DX7 type sound. You can think of this as being basically a 2 operator. So you've got your carrier and your modulator. So in those terms, carrier, modulator. But it gets a bit more complex. We'll work through all the knobs and buttons. So sine, saw, ramp. Yes, they're essentially the same thing, but the different phase approach means that you'll get different results, especially in FM. Triangle. Square to a very tight pulse. White noise. Brown noise. So they're all in there. Primarily for now, we'll work with just the sines. Now, something you may have noticed by now is that this thing sounds stereo all the time. It's because, as it says here, it's a dual tri-oscillator synth. So dual as in oscillator 1 and 2, but tri-oscillator because each of these oscillators is actually 3 oscillators. 1, 2, 3. You've got your center, which is actually always in tune, and that goes out both left and right. Because that's the same, it tends to stay centered. And you've got a second and a third, and they are hard panned left, hard panned right. The left one, when you detune, will drop in pitch. The right one will rise in pitch. If I didn't have the second one there, then the synth tends to sound like out here. Really just far too wide. It lacks a center. As soon as you put the middle one in, then these two have got something to detune against, and you end up with a much more robust sound. So each of these is 3 oscillators, and they are hard panned. So right now, if you're listening, it sounds like it's in stereo because it is. So how to solve that if that's a problem for you in a situation? If your mixer has a way of reducing your stereo field, which many do, then just close it up. Otherwise, a mono button. So this is taking all of this and collapsing into mono. If you take only one side of your stereo field, then you're in danger of actually only having 2 oscillators, and it won't sound balanced anymore. So mono is there as an option for those times where you might need it. Sometimes you're going to want that in mono, in which case we'll turn off the effects. It gives you the immediacy of mono, or if you're really being sort of pedantic about DX7, it was mono. Sorry, let's put that back where it was. We'll go back to my patch. Oscillator shapes. Now, tuning of your oscillator. You've got octave, you can go plus minus 4 octaves. You might wonder why I let it go so low. That's because they can be useful when they're down that low. So you can move all 3 of them up or down by 4 octaves. You can also move by semitone, up 1 octave, down 1 octave by semitone. The reason that I've gone both ways instead of just one is that sometimes it's really frustrating when you go, oh, okay, I want to have a fifth. No, I don't want it above, I want it below. And then to go below, you've got to move 2 sets of controls. Not good. Oh, I think I just noticed a bug. Oh, no. I just thought for a moment where I played softly, but there will always be some phase cancellations. I deliberately did not lock all of these oscillators to having their phases perfectly together. Because it would have made the detune kind of nasty. It would have sounded like it was actually a flanger rather than a real detune. I did worry, is this going to cause a problem when we get into FM? Because normally FM oscillators are locked, but it's not making a nasty noise as a result of it. So we gain more by leaving them open than by locking them together. But it does mean that on each key press, you'll end up with a slightly different sound. Fine tune. We can tune up or down half a semitone. Funny little on button next to it. We can turn our fine tuning off. Reason being is that sometimes in FM synthesis, having your carrier and modulator slightly out of tune with each other can create a nasty result. If that's not what you want, because it's not easy to center this perfectly to get it back to 0, then you can just turn it off. It seemed easier to do it that way. Offset. This is a bit of an unusual one. Because I've got 3 oscillators there, I allow you to offset their relationship with each other. One of those oscillators can be moved. So seeing it's 1, it's the middle one. You can take that middle oscillator and drop it, or raise it by four octaves. That's pretty useful because it actually means that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 operators. Not as flexible as a full 4 operator FM synth, however, nowhere near as complex to play with. It works on the assumption that most of the time, if you are offsetting something, it's by an octave. And then again, the detune. You will get different results when you've got an offset, because remember that middle one that's being moved is always actually in tune. It's the ones left and right that are moving. But we gain more with it than if it wasn't there, so it's worth having. Oscillator 2. Basically, all of this is exactly the same as up here. It's when we get over to here that the 2 oscillators have a slight difference. One is just that we can take the output of oscillator 2 and send it to FM. That is sent via this envelope. The output of oscillator 2 is optional. Sadly, a lot of the free kind of do everything Synth 1 type synths, and I can't remember specifically with Synth 1, but sadly a lot of them mean that to have FM, you've got to have the second oscillator in the mix. Now sometimes you want that, but that sound is not the same as that sound. So it's good to have the choice. So I've set this so that you can add this in. At the moment it's an octave up. Or we can just detune it. Or we can have what goes to the audible mix, or the filter, controlled by the envelope. So you can hear it come and go. So that gives you a fair amount of flexibility in how things are added in. FM is always post envelope. I considered otherwise, but it just didn't seem to be worth the effort. And if we add our effects back in, beautiful glassy sound. Back out again. So that's how all of that works. We'll pop this out again. We've got a simple LFO. Now, I considered adding more LFOs and more modulation, but all it does is weigh the instrument down. The reality is most times these days, most hosts have some sort of modulation system built in. Bitwig's got a great one. So look into it. Look into your own modulation system if you're looking for more than this does. Your pitch is hardwired to a vibrato setup. Your filter is, and mod wheel, so CC1. Filter is hardwired to CC11, and that will control. You can use them for some special effects, but it's not really designed that way. They're designed mostly to handle vibrato and a kind of tremolo. So it's not literally tremolo because I'm not messing with the main volume. You can get tremolo plugins that are going to do a way better job than this, or DIY, which I'm prone to doing. But in this situation, it's just designed to turn the filter cutoff into a kind of tremolo. Use them, find a little bit of use. Hopefully you have a system which allows you to fly modulation in from somewhere, and then you can get very flexible with controlling anything on here that moves. That way the complexity is up to you rather than being handed down onto you from me. Filter. I'll turn this into a saw. Can get pretty fiery. 2 or 4 pole. Resonance is here, modulation, which is just your ADSR. Key follow. So it doesn't follow, the filter doesn't open with the higher notes. This opens the filter up more and more. You can need to adjust your cutoff after you change that. I've put some effort in to make it sort of even out, but I'm not going to pretend it's perfect. It is possible to run this as kind of analog synth, as I said. It'll tend to a digitally sound, but it's character. Pull that out of the mix for now. I'd encourage you to put a lot of time into working with that. If you're not overly familiar with FM, I'd put time to working without the filter, so that way you learn how to get the sounds that you want. This is always going to be subtle. It doesn't get into the nasty arena. Output, just a main volume. The envelope is deliberately fast. It will have a slight DC click when it's all the way down. Get up here somewhere, it starts to go away. about it. So that's basically the whole synth. It's then what we do with it that start to get us places. So we'll look at some of the obvious, like DJing. I'll put those effects back on just because chances are you're going to be using effects in your mix. Give it a couple of dB to overcome the loss in the effects. I'll pull that after the effects just in case. But it's when we start playing around with these sorts of detunings, we get these really wonderfully nasty, scrapey noises. You want to bring your filter into play as well. It really comes down to how complex you want to be. Naturally, some of these may sound a little out of tune, but that's part of what gives them that sound that you're looking for. So there you can hear the big difference between saw and ramp. It's just changing that phase shape. Use a smooth shape down here. So we've got lots of greebly going on up here. Oh, sorry, I totally forgot to mention different types of filters. I remember that because of all the greebly going on up there. Band pass, and reject. you can get nasty stuff out of it. That's the whole idea. You can also get into applying noise to things, which could get into hi-hats. Noise is unpitched. Cool. So it gets into metallic stuff, so even ride cymbal samples and that sort of stuff. So very simple, designed to give you the ability to play with a lot of what's good about FM without really stepping too far away from what's great about the simplicity of subtractive synth. Are you going to abandon Propellerhead's PX7 or Zero, like Blamsoft's Zero, or NI's FM8, or Citrus? No, not meant to compete with them. But if you're looking for some of that special flavour that FM, the DX style, will give you, then this will definitely do some of that. If you've got questions, please ask them down below. If you just want to be mean to me, go away. I'm either going to delete your post or I'm going to rip you a new one that you deserve. Don't be mean. All that says is that you're a really small person. Sorry to have to say that, but I have a tendency of attracting people who like to be mean to me. And it's not because I'm too sensitive. Yeah, of course I'm bloody sensitive. I'm an artist. And if you're so insensitive that you just think that being mean to other people is a cool way to amuse your afternoon, don't pretend to be a musician. Just fuck off. And if you want to test me on that, then I will either delete you or absolutely shred you. Don't care what your problem is. Don't make it mine. So, questions, things that you'd like me to look at, pop them down there. Also, I do appreciate, if you have appreciated this, please give me some positive feedback. Positive feedback is not quite as good as money, having you hire me for something that I can do, which is all on my website, is the best way. But the second best way to say, look, hey, I appreciate what you've done, is to say, hey, Benedict, I appreciate what you've done. Try put it out there. Put it there so I can see it. That way, I'm more encouraged to do this sort of thing again. So have fun with the device. As I say, I believe it's going to be on vstforfree.com. If the guy takes it up, can't see why he wouldn't. You have a good day now. Bye.